Episode 5, we are live, Bird's Eye View, back once again with Matt and Zach.
How you guys doing today?
Hoping to
be back.
Hoping to bring you guys some great recaps of everything. We had a couple matches. Luckily, unfortunately, a little bit of a slower week, so only a couple games to cover. But we had some great playoff action. We got some great interviews and other good content coming up for you guys. So let's get right into it.
Yeah, for sure. So starting off, we do have to mention that, this week was American Thanksgiving, so there wasn't a lot going on. And when you take that in combination with the fact that we do have some teams who have finished their current seasons, it was pretty slow. Only 4 of our 7 teams did play this week. Overwatch, they did finish their season last week, as well as Fortnite. I believe they're done. And Rainbow Six, I think they're still in it, but they didn't play this last week.
Yeah, just American Thanksgiving, small break for a while. Yeah, Play Versus and the other R6 Collegiate, a little bit of a break there for the Americans.
Yeah, exactly. So pretty slow, but the games that we did have it is like playoff implications type stuff. So really excited, and yeah, let's jump right into it.
We're starting off with League of Legends?
Yeah, let's go right.
All right, we're going to jump in. All right, so League of Legends, we had the NECC, the quarterfinals of the Champions Division, which is the highest division of NECC. The Saints played Grandview University, GVU. They came out on top in a 2-0 victory, 2-0. And this was the story. We had the triumphant return of Ricky LaFleur to the top lane after his 2-week hiatus. And let's just say he did not disappoint. Now, the 2-0 scoreline, as we say almost every other week, there's a lot more to tell than just the 2-0. In the second game, the Saints had to pull everything. They had to pull out all the stops and reach deep and pull out everything they had to have a great comeback. Mm-hmm. But game 1, unfortunately, there was a good amount of technical issues throughout the stream. So game 1 didn't actually patch until about the 16 or 17 minute mark, unfortunately. But we came back in St. Clair was slightly down in kills and gold. It was a pretty back and forth game. GVU seemed to be team fighting really, really well. And this is one thing that went through game 1 and game 2 is that the Saints saw a lot of excellent solo play and a lot of crazy 1 or 2 players making a huge play, while GVU was seeing a lot more team fighting, and you would see a lot more double-digit assists down the box score for GVU. So they just seemed to be grouping a little better and playing a little bit better positioning and playing the objectives a little bit stronger than St. Clair to start off. But as we know, in St. Clair, if you get Ricky or Fresh or E-Hug starting to pop off, then things can start to turn on their head a little bit.
Absolutely. And Ricky is one of those players who has a lot of pop-off moments. So we definitely missed him, seeing his presence there on the field over these past couple of weeks. But now that he's back, he clearly hasn't missed a beat. He was in the training room over the past few weeks, right?
Ricky was definitely in the lab.
He was keeping his skills sharp, and it definitely showed.
I'd say in the Saints, they would win this game as well without the usual. Jax was banned, so Ricky immediately coming back, and they said, "Oh, Ricky's back. Jax is gone." Immediate the respect ban immediately going in for Ricky. Then we saw the Yuumi ban. Sorry, Fresh. We know that you've been having quite a bit of fun on Yuumi recently. And then we saw a Vi ban for that's E-Hug has been dominating the jungle with Vi as well the last couple of weeks. So we saw immediately 3 respect bans coming out of GVU to try to mess with St. Clair, and it looked like it actually worked for the beginning part of it. But eventually, like I said, the Saints they would just start to scale. E-Hug and Fresh would pick up some huge kills. At around the 22-minute mark, the Saints would get an ace, end up taking I think the Inferno Dragon, and then eventually they would just be able to push. They had great pressure through the mid lane, and then eventually Zephrot would get an enormous quadra kill. The Saints, this is probably their best moment of the game. Every single teammate and every single ability was working perfectly in unison, and Zephrot playing as Yasuo, just able to cut everybody down left and right, just dash sword cutting everybody. Everyone was trying to run for their lives, and he was not allowing it. And the Saints were pretty much able to run them down. And then I will say GVU had a nice little comeback the next 5 minutes, so they actually pushed the Saints to the brink of their base. But the same GVU, they invested literally, I think they invested 4 ultimates. They had an anti-ultimate and 3 or 4 others come in, and the Saints were able to just bait all the ultimates out, basically reset the fight, and then immediately wipe all of GVU out from their side of the map. And they were able to steamroll to the other side of the map pretty much right away.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important skill of a team that I feel doesn't get talked about a lot, is the ability to be able to absorb an attack and bounce back.
Yeah.
When you can manage to make your enemy commit so many resources and get nothing out of it, that gives you such an advantage going into the next fight. And the fact that Saints can do that and do it consistently, that's such a great show of skill from them.
Oh yeah, and we saw I think a little bit of the arcane inspiration. We saw a Jinx pick come out of the side of GVU, and the Jinx was played extremely strong. And Jinx is a character a lot of people know, not super great in the early game, but if you let that blue-haired chick start running around late game with those rockets, it can be a real problem for you and your team.
Oh, yeah.
And so in GVU, actually before that last team fight, they ended up taking Baron. The Saints avoided the team fight at the Baron. They could have challenged it. They decided, no, we're gonna wait. We're gonna play it. We're gonna let our abilities refresh. We're gonna sit back. And like I said, GVU would try to swarm them, and the Saints pretty much just caught them all in the net and flushed them away. Like there was GVU, they invested literally everything they had. The Saints would close it out, get an ace, run down to the other end, crash the Nexus, and then game 1 was in the books.
Yeah. You know, GVU, they're when it comes to esports, they're really solid. Like Grandview, they consistently like place among like the top levels in like a lot of their titles. Right?
Yeah.
Like I know their Overwatch team was really solid. Their league team, that we've had a lot of close matches against them before, right? And so you know, Saints managing to put their foot down here, it bodes well.
And like I said, yeah, and the Saints, like GVU, you can clearly tell the chemistry is on point. These guys were excellent in every single team. But like I said, every single player had double-digit assists for GVU. So that's every single player, every single team fight was contributing in some form or fashion. And when you have that, see, like that's when you can make games close. But we ultimately saw just like the talent, the top-end talent of St. Clair. Like when you get those scaling champs, especially, like just way too much damage and way too much mobility. They say one player, like when you get a tanky Yasuo or a Yone, and you get some of the other, you get the return of Ricky, like coming back in, like the Saints just know that they have the capability of making the play that needs to be made. So even if the team fight maybe isn't going their way or they don't get the objective they want, they're still able to completely flip the fight with 1 or 2 huge plays.
Yeah, for sure.
And then in the second game, fortunately for Fresh, Yumi would not be banned, and neither would Hecarim for E-Hug. So for the 3rd week in a row, we see the little cat-horse duo running at 2x speed. Although this time it didn't look as good for St. Clair. We had a little bit of tech issues again through the first like 10-15 minutes again, but this time GVU actually came out and started steamrolling the Saints. St. Clair literally looked like confused. They looked like they had no answer. They were all scattered all over the place, getting picked in the jungle, getting ganked in lane, not having great turret control. See, the only one that was pretty much holding down, like Ricky was holding down the top lane as good as he has the entire year. And that's one thing that the Saints have seen throughout the year. Even when they're like falling behind in the jungle in the mid, the top lane, regardless if it was Fez or now Ricky especially, like they've had it locked down. Like I said, when you can control like 20-25% of the map with one player and have like full faith in him, that just makes everybody else's job a little bit easier, especially as you get closer to the end game and everything.
For sure.
And then, so yeah, GVU had a 10-kill lead over the Saints early in the game. They were up 15-5. The only bright spot besides Ricky, Zephrot was able to keep a little bit of pressure in the mid, and they were able to get the Rift Herald. So Zephrot was able to clear the first 2 turrets in mid, which if you're going to fall behind in a lot of team fights and fall behind in items, like the one thing that you need to do is make sure like we have to start getting some objective progress. Especially now in League, they have the new objective bounties that were just updated. So especially when a team is behind, when you see that little gold outline on those turrets, like getting any of those objectives can actually swing a couple items your team's way. And that can ultimately mean like, hey, we might be losing this fight. We could skill even harder for the next fight. We can come back and turn these guys over.
For sure. It really gives you a chance to like, you know, pull one over on the enemy team, just completely reverse that momentum, right?
Yeah. And I said GVU, they'd come back a little bit. They'd end up actually acing St. Clair shortly after. I think they ended up having like a 19-7 kill lead at one point. Like the Saints literally just, they looked almost as bad as they have all year. They actually just looked like confused. I say maybe, I don't know if it was nerves or the guys maybe took their foot off the gas or just a little bit confused or whatever, but like they just seemed to be out of sorts, and we hadn't really seen them like so out of sorts yet. Right. And then say GVU eventually they would like the Saints would go to try to take Baron because like you're gonna play the objectives, you got to try to get some buffs and get back into the game. GVU would shut it down, kill a couple of the Saints. The Saints would reset, and it was looking very grim. And it was in the span of 5 minutes. St. Clair was down 12 kills, and they ended up being up 2 kills in the span of 5 minutes. Jeez. So when you have like a 14 kill swing in under 5-6 minutes in League of Legends. Something like the Saints, it went absolutely bananas.
Yeah.
Like we saw Ricky playing as Darius at around the 25-minute mark, just dunking on everybody with Darius. Dunk left, dunk right, charge back mid, dunk, spin. End up getting a huge pentakill. And to say, if you're Ricky, after missing 2 weeks and coming back and getting the penta, like that had to feel like so rejuvenating for him. Like
for sure.
He was just cooped up, waiting to let out all that energy for so long, and then he finally gets a Darius pick, and he comes out and just rolls.
That's essentially the equivalent of like, you know, having your star hockey player like be out for an injury for like a month or so, come back, he gets a hat trick in the first quarter, right?
Oh yeah, Ricky. This was a man on a mission this game. So he had a really solid first game, but especially with the way the Saints were kind of getting dogged on the second game, you knew someone was going to go, all right, like, no more, boys.
Yeah.
We're going to shut this down now, get ahead of it. And Ricky was the guy to do it this game. We had great play out of E-Hug as well, as usual. It's like clearing the jungle and doing everything properly. The Saints would actually say Ricky would get a penta, everybody resets, the Saints would go ace GVU again immediately the next fight. Basically, E-Hug and Ricky were like a 2-man wrecking crew doing 90% of the damage.
No rest for the weary.
Oh, no, yeah. Literally 10 kill swing in under like 2.5 minutes, like back-to-back aces. Like if you're GVU, they had to just go, what just hit us?
Yeah.
Like this, we just got hit with a vortex of confusion and pain.
Well, especially like, if you're starting out, you're in control, and then all of a sudden you go from like pushing forward, all of a sudden you're upside down, you're completely lost in the sauce.
And what's better than 2 aces, you ask? How about 3? Because in the third fight again, the Saints would go back down, and on the back of Ricky once again dunking on everybody, he would get another triple kill. The Saints would clear the ace, complete a crazy storybook comeback. Ricky ended up with 12 kills and 4 assists. And like I said, the Saints literally from down 12 kills, 6 minutes later, they'd be winning the game. And without Baron, too. So if you told me that GUJV would have Baron, have full map control, be up 12 kills, and 5 minutes later lose the game, I probably would have told you were lying.
Yeah.
But the fact that the Saints were able to come back and do it, it was a treat
you
to
gotta
watch.
see to believe.
That's
right?
what you have to just at least find the clips of Ricky, and I'm sure we'll splice them in here. Like, just make sure you keep your eyes on the top lane, keep your eyes on that Darius, because Ricky, he made a triumphant return, and that's like he's got to be our spotlighted player of the week, because this guy absolutely he brought the juice back to the team, and you could immediately see his impact.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you just gotta.
It was unreal. The second game was like you can't like you had to see it to believe it, because even me watching it, I was like, man, they're really getting rolled. And literally as soon as you could blink, it was like, oh my god, they won. And it was unbelievable.
You gotta wonder if maybe Ricky was coming back with a bit of a vengeance, because he's been out these past weeks and we've seen FaZe playing it for him, right?
Yeah.
And so FaZe had a really good performance. So maybe there was a bit of worry in the back of his head. He's like, oh man, FaZe is getting pretty good. I want to make sure I don't get my spot taken, right? So when he comes back, he's putting his pedal to the metal, showing that, oh yeah, that's why he's the starter. Like, he's making sure that we don't forget just how insane this guy is at the game.
FaZe played a phenomenal Graves in top lane last week, and he was one of the better players, like one of the stronger players for the Saints. But Ricky Lafleur coming back with a penta, a triple, and helping contribute to 3 aces in the same game to complete that massive comeback in the playoffs, no less, to move on to the semifinals on Friday. I think it'll be December 3rd. We'll talk about it a little bit later. It's just like unbelievable. And saying now you have to like tune in, because next week I bet you Ricky has something else in store.
Yeah,
this guy's gonna keep going. When
100%.
Ricky starts to feel himself, the game gets a lot more fun to watch.
Oh yeah. No.
Alrighty, well.
Yeah, let's keep it moving. And
Keep
what
moving.
do we have
Definitely
next?
Good match to watch. But moving over to Call of Duty.
Oh yeah.
The COD team played in the NACE playoffs over the last week.
Keeping alive in there.
And actually had a really good showing.
Well, I mean, are we surprised at this point?
Are we surprised?
Shocker.
Not really. But
The COD team being good? Well, I never.
who would have thought, right? But no, they've been having a phenomenal performance within playoffs. They had a slight hiccup in round 1 where they did play the second best team in the bracket.
Yep.
Where they do fall 3-1. Unfortunately, Independence Community College.
The perfect streak broken.
Finally, the COD team bleeds.
Rather than bleed in round 1 than in the finals, though. If you're going to stumble, it's a good time to go through some adversity and be like, hey, now we have been beaten. Now we actually have to dial in and reset and then make a final push, which they have done so far.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, going into losers bracket, you have a 3-1 win here. It was a pretty good showing. It was a little bit close, but it wasn't that bad. It was still pretty good overall for St. Clair.
Yeah, right, for sure.
And
Still
then you
in control.
3-0 back to back, and now they're sitting. They're gearing up right now. Their ticket is punched in the NACE Grand Finals against the team that knocked them into losers, Independence Community College. So you got to think now. Okay, they've played against them now. They've now had all this time. They've had 1 week of playoffs. Plus, there's a 2-week gap between the losers finals and the grand finals for them to now counter strat and prepare for this match. So I'm expecting a really close match.
Oh, absolutely.
ICC is nothing to scoff at. They're a really strong team, as we see.
Yeah.
Handing our team the one and only loss they've ever taken this season. And I do have faith in our team. It was a really close set. In that winners round 1.
Right.
And St. Clair did have their shining moments here and there. It did look like they might have been playing a little bit off that day, but obviously, first game of the day,
Playoffs.
you're kind of warming up a little bit.
There's always like external factors that you have to consider, right?
And anytime you're running an undefeated train for a few months, you're gonna go into every single match like nervous as hell, because like you're human. Like if you're running with like a 25 to 30 streak and not dropping a map, like people can say like they don't think about it, or they don't feel it like you do. Anyone who's played sports or been in competitive, like when you know you have no next thing, you know.
Unconscious level.
Yeah.
Like it's always just there.
You
in the
always
back of
know,
your
yeah. You're
head,
like,
right?
damn, if a screw up like that, the O's gone. It's like it's always that's like you can say it doesn't. You don't think about it. Every single player thinks about it, whether they agree with it or not.
Yeah.
100%. And you know that you're saying that now that kind of pressure's been cracked, you know, it's kind of like faded now, right?
Yeah.
Like you've taken that loss. You've had the time to give yourself a mental reset. You played through a couple games. You're feeling good. You got that confidence built back up. Now you're going into grands. Confidence still as high as ever. You know who you're playing against. You have VODs of playing against them that you could look at and practice against. You know, you have every tool available to you to like give you every single little advantage you possibly can.
And the fire of revenge burning in their hearts.
Well, yeah.
They want to get this one back. Obviously, get the finals, but
That's what I was gonna say.
you want
is
to
that
take it back.
There's few things more scary than when a really good team gets mad.
Yeah.
And you know they're gonna be upset about.
and then you give them
losing.
2 weeks to prepare.
They're gonna be coming back with a fire in their belly. They're gonna be looking to dominate ICC.
It's gonna be a knockdown, drag out fight between, let's say, two great teams, but let's say 2 weeks to prepare, and yeah, the fire of like they stole your O and they beat you into the losers round in the playoffs. So it's like, all right, we can like now we're gonna you guys wanted to try and ruin our playoffs? Now we'll just take the title from you.
Yeah, and like you can tell that like St. Clair, they're running hot right now. Like they just steamrolled through the rest of losers, right?
They woke up.
Yeah, exactly. Like I honestly, I'm unsure if they even noticed they got knocked to losers. The way they went through those games so fast.
And that's good. I'd say, and when you finally do lose, like you don't get hung up on the loss. They went, all right, we got chin checked once or twice. It's like, okay, let's regroup, and now like we know we can. These are all beatable teams. Let's just get back to the final. We know if we play this team again, we know how they play. We can scheme them, and we can come back, and we'll have an answer for them.
And you know, there's one thing that we say a lot on this podcast is that you learn a lot more from a loss than you do from a win, right? St. Clair, they've been winning all season. So when they're looking over their games, when they're doing their review, when they're like, okay, what can we improve on? There's not a lot of stuff they can pick out because they've been so dominant.
I should have hit that headshot when we were up 220 to 60.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I shot his chest instead of his head. That's my bad. Yeah. But now they have a loss. They actually have something solid that they can take, that they can incorporate, and that they can improve on. They're going to be able to take that. And I think that when we see them coming back against ICC, we are going to see them at their peak. They're going to look better than they have all season. That's what I'm going to put down right now.
100%. You know, it's going to be a match to behold
for sure.
Like
definitely the match.
If there's any match that you could tune into the entirety of this season for any of the teams at St. Clair, this is the one.
Absolutely.
You know, our COD team has like obviously like they've won awards after awards. They've won practically all of their games. They've barely dropped a map. Like,
yeah.
Over the course of the entire season plus playoffs, they've dropped 4 maps.
Yeah.
Like 3 of them coming out of the one loss. And then out of all of their wins, they've dropped 1 map.
Yeah.
All the rest of the map losses just come from the 1 loss. It's just
unbelievable.
Absolutely baffling.
Yeah. No, it's going to be a great match for sure. And, you know, I'm sure the players, they're all like getting really excited as they're going to it. Like they have basically like a week off now to prepare to get ready for that, and they're going to be coming in hot. And speaking of the players, we do actually have an interview with Brandon from the COD team. You know, he's had such a great season. He's been like, honestly, he's been like nipping at the toes of Priestley in some of these games.
Which is a lot to say.
Yeah, like Priestley's such a good player, and like Brandon, he's like been doing his best to like keep up and just look absolutely dominant. So he's had a great season, and yeah, we're gonna throw it over to the interview with him, of course, with our special behind-the-scenes interviewer, Nicholas, and yeah, we'll be right back after that.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Here we have Brandon Last, player for the COD team. What is your position? What do you play mostly?
I typically play like the entry sub. Like I typically try my best to slay out while Trent is on the hill, and then everyone else like slays out around him. I'm typically that one who's just sprinting around at gunfights, trying to get in the most engagements as I can.
Okay, and I mean, you guys went to the lower bracket fairly early last week or this past weekend, but I mean, you guys ran through the lower bracket, and you guys are on to the finals now, the grand finals. How do you keep calm during that situation, like going into each game?
It's just all about like trust like within our team. Like we all know that we have each other's backs. We all know that we're all good at the game. So like when we first played ICC, we hadn't really played any competitive setting for a while. So when we played them, we really were out of our element. You could tell from our plays that we weren't really communicating. We didn't know how to play together. We kind of forgot after not playing for like a week. And then we went into the next matchups and we started getting progressively better and better, even against like better teams such as Texas A&M International. They're a top team, and we came out and 3-0'd them and did really well against them because we started to find our groove again.
Yeah, you guys. I think you guys only dropped like 1 or 2 games in the lower bracket in that run. Phenomenal. You guys played phenomenal, and wish you guys the best of luck going into the finals on December 4th. But how do you keep your mindset on where it's at, like in certain situations, like when you did drop that one game against, I do forget the team, but it was in the semifinals in the lower bracket. When you drop one game, how do you go with your mindset? How do you move on from that?
It's just about the regain, right? So we know that we are a good team and we know that we can compete. So the second we lost the game, it's just we clear that out of our head and we think, okay, what's next? Now I think we lost the search and destroy, so I think we thought, okay, what's next? We're on the search. We're on the control. We know we're probably one of the best control teams in NACE. So we know we can take maps off of anyone. So as soon as like we knew control was up, we just completely cleared the search off of our brain and we said, let's regain, let's focus on what's coming up and work on getting to the finals again.
Oh, that's always good. And I mean, it must be tough, especially Dawson was out of town this past weekend. So who took over that leadership role and pointing the team in the right direction, even after they're coming out of the winners bracket and going into the lower bracket after up in the upper bracket? Who took over that?
Typically it's Priestley who likes to take over. He's like our main AR slayer, so he's pretty confident in what he does, and he knows so much about the game that like even just from my perspective, I've like only just started playing competitive this year, and he's like really helped me be able to adapt into like the player I am. He's taught me plays. He tells me he teaches everyone how to play the game. So it's pretty much been Priestley. He's been doing all like the vetoes and stuff too for our team. He's pretty much our like standout guy when it comes to in-game comms and everything.
That's good. And what's your team's confidence at going into this grand finals against ICC?
We're pretty confident. We choked a few maps when we played them. We lost 3-1, but the score lines for the maps really didn't show that except for search. I think we lost our second hardpoint 250 to 200, and we lost the raid control in a very close 3-2. So as long as we can get our teamwork up and flowing again, I think we can easily take this series off them as long as we're playing together and playing as a team.
All right, and one last question. What is your favorite vegetable?
My favorite vegetable.
Yep.
A carrot.
A carrot? That's good. Awesome.
I don't even know if
Thank
that's a
you.
vegetable, but yeah.
Absolutely it is. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right.
So thanks so much to Nicholas for that special behind the scenes interview with Brandon. That was it was a really great interview as always. One thing that really stood out to me, and honestly, this is something I didn't realize. I knew that Brandon was a rookie to St. Clair, but I did not realize that this was apparently the first year that he's been taking COD competitive serious, just in general. Like the fact that he's like, this is the first year he's actually like been like taking it seriously, and he's still putting up as great a performance as he is. That's incredible.
He can say he's got like a 30-1 career record as a semi-pro COD player. It's pretty not bad for a rookie season.
Talk about an outstanding resume early on, eh? Like, that's just insane stuff.
Just gotta get one of these now.
Yeah, that's it. That's just going for the ring at this point.
Oh, the fact that also he still has so much more room to grow as a player. Like,
yeah, the COD team has such a bright future.
Brandon has not even begun to touch his skill ceiling, I'm sure, and he's already doing as good as he is. He's going to be such a great piece for St. Clair.
Our team is looking very healthy.
Yeah.
Moving on after this.
Oh yeah.
And then I think that they didn't mention it while talking about the playoffs, and I didn't mention it earlier, but I do know that the finals for Call of Duty is best of 9.
Ooh.
Which is going to be interesting because obviously the COD team hasn't played in a best of 9.
Right.
Right. So but it is like a format that we've seen in Call of Duty before. I'm 90% sure that that's what the COD League does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just these prolonged matches, like the endurance test that gets added to that like kind of like finals like kind of appearance is something I think that St. Clair's going to do really well with, right? Because we've seen them play like games like back to back to back and still perform just fine.
It's kind of like Brandon said, right? He was saying that part of the reason they kind of struggled against ICC was because they had like that time off. They had the break, the week or so without regularly playing, having like that high level competition, and so it kind of like they didn't really get complacent. They just had to like kind of get back into the swing of things. So if once they like get hot, they'll be able to stay hot. And will ICC be able to do the same thing?
Well,
We'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to see. But like, I have full 100% faith that St. Clair will be able to do that.
I will stand on my 2 feet right now and predict a 5-2 win for the Saints.
5-2.
ICC will take a couple games. It'll be back and forth. Maybe 5-3. I'll be a little generous, but I'll say it'll be 5-2 or 5-3. I think the Saints come out, maybe take the first 2 maps or something. Maybe go back and forth for a couple. I think they'll close it out and they'll end up champs.
How many rounds of Search and Destroy are going to be played? Because I think that'll determine the score line.
So if they played all control, 5-0.
S&D, I think that's ICC's one chance to be able to take maps. If they don't take S&D, then I think we could see a 5-1 or even 5-0.
Like I said, and even though they lost to IC, you heard how close all the score lines were. That's like 1 or 2 plays away from being the Saints knocking them into losers and flipping that around. So even though St. Clair lost and they said they had to regroup from the loss, like it was as close as it could have been of them losing and say after the break and after everything. So if you're ever going to lose in that fashion, like they had to have still been sky high with confidence after the fact. Cause like, they're like, hey, we only lost by like a smidge and we missed 1 or 2 rotations, 1 or 2 plays. And like, they know like, hey, we can easily correct those mistakes. And now we're going to show you guys what's up.
100%.
It's going to be a great match. Yeah. But we're going to keep it moving right along for now. And we're going to get into our other team that was in a NACE playoffs. Rocket League. And Rocket League, unfortunately, well, we have 2 Rocket League teams, of course, Rocket League Gold, Rocket League Green. Rocket League Gold's playoff run did unfortunately end. Yeah, and very sad. We hate to see it. They ended up losing to Stockton. That's the match that we talked about last week a lot. You know, it was a bit of a tough loss, 1-4 for Stockton. They ended up taking that in pretty handy fashion. But we did get knocked down to losers where we looked to stay alive. And we did actually manage to beat James Madison University, which you guys may remember as the team that we took a forfeit win against the week prior. So James Madison, because of that forfeit, they were also in losers.
Imagine you forfeit to a team just to not avoid them a week later. Like we're coming
exactly,
for you guys.
right? Well, James Madison, we did end up going against them anyway. That was a 4-2. So we started strong. We took the 4-2 win over James Madison. We moved on and we played against Indiana University. And unfortunately there, it was a reversal where we ended up losing 2-4. And that ended our playoffs run. So St. Clair Gold Rocket League, we end NACE playoffs with a top 8 finish, which top 8, of course, is still good. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but it is a bit disappointing considering that, you know, we were looking like a top 3 team all season.
Yeah. Especially in CRL, right? Like we were looking at being like a pretty strong team in CRL, and you know things didn't go quite as planned there.
Yeah, for sure.
And kind of fell flat a little bit here in NACE.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think a lot of this is I'm not going to try and shift the blame or anything, but I do think that in a very large part we were a victim of the circumstances because Spoods is still out due to health issues, which is very unfortunate. So we did have to like go into like these final playoffs having our sub in, having Fusions in, and while he looked fine, like it was obvious that like the team chemistry wasn't quite at the same level that they had built up with Spoods, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I mentioned like last week, like say he's got a bunch of great offensive playmaking, but when you get into the playoffs, into the deeper runs, like it's almost always the defensive battles that'll win those games in the playoffs, regardless what game it is. Like the game usually slows down, everything tightens up, and like there's way less room for mistakes. Like you might have a slightly large window to make mistakes in regular season because everyone's playing a lot more loose. You miss like 1 rotation in a playoff game and you might lose 1-0. Like a lot of the games are going to be 2-1, 1-0, 3-2. They're not going to be super high scoring games. And say the chemistry on offense, you can kind of make that up as you go. Like you can just kind of get into the flow, but defensively, like you have to be able to get into sets and be able to know what like positioning, and it's a lot more technical. Yeah, a lot more chemistry. And you just need time to put into it. Quite frankly, if you haven't had the time to adjust to it all year, it's going to be a lot harder to do it when you don't know exactly where everyone's going to be at all times of the game.
Absolutely, yeah. So, that's just one of those things that's just like, it's really unfortunate, but they did what they could. They did still manage to get top 8. So good job, Rocket League. A good finish to the NACE season for now. And fortunately, Green, they did manage to stay alive. They will be playing, they are in losers right now, and they're going to be looking to go against ODU, Old Dominion University. And if they win against them, then they're going to be looking to go against UCF, University of Central Florida. UCF, they are a CRL team, so it's going to be a tough match. It's going to be a tough match for sure.
I will say, if you're Green and you want to really show yourselves right here, you want to come out and punk a CRL team.
Oh, absolutely.
This would be a great time to show.
It's gonna be a difficult. It's gonna they're gonna be punching up.
It will not be easy.
We're not gonna
This will not be easy.
St. Clair Green, they are the underdogs going into this, but they've shown so many times that they have the potential to be able to take it against top teams like this, right? So we're gonna be looking to see a great performance out of them.
And say one thing, you could say you're playing with like not no pressure, but you're like, hey, we're not supposed to win this. We can just go out there and just play free. And that's sometimes you can get in your own head of like trying to stick to a game plan so hard and so concretely. But if you just get in there and you're like, hey, there's no pressure on us to win this game. Like we can just go out there and have some fun and we can just try to make stuff happen. And that can spark a team. That can give you guys a little bit of inspiration or a little creativity when working on offense or defense too.
Yeah, for sure. And we like Kamal, he is like we did see a little bit last week. We saw some like kind of roster swapping going on where Kamal was doing a bit of practice with the St. Clair Gold team in order to like see if maybe he would be the sub in addition to Fusion if like for some reason Fusion couldn't play.
Yeah.
Right. Now Kamal, I think that Rocket League Gold is kind of solidified that Fusion is like going to be their full-time starter while Spoods is out.
Yeah.
So Kamal, he's dedicating all his time to the green team again. Kamal, he's a star level player.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think he's good. He's the one player that you want to definitely be keeping an eye on as we go into like these final matches for the Rocket League Green team.
So
right?
it is uphill, but Green is in good hands with Kamal helping them out. Like this a very uphill battle for sure, but definitely winnable.
Yeah, absolutely. We put so much focus onto the Rocket League Gold team because they are like the premier team. They're the gold child,
standard,
right?
Yeah, the gold standard.
But there is so much talent in Green that unfortunately just like gets overshadowed. And now that the Rocket League Gold team, they're kind of like taking a break now that they're at the NACE playoffs. I think this is like Green's time to shine, right? Like it's going to be all eyes on them.
That's why St. Clair has 2 extremely competitive Rocket League teams. There's enough talent where even if Gold gets knocked out, Green can still make a hell of a run to close out the year.
For sure, yeah. Now, for the fans of the Rocket League Gold team, if you do love seeing them play, they are still going to get one more chance before the year is over. At least one more.
Yeah.
They are going to be playing on the upcoming weekend in the TGS Championships, the gaming stadium. There are some really good teams there. I don't believe it's quite at the level of CRL, of course, but it's in between NACE and CRL.
It'll be a fun competitive showcase. Yeah, not as serious as play. Yeah, just fun. They want to just test your skills, maybe win some prizes, and just have a good competitive day, and just say more have fun. I think with this than stressing over like the crunch of the playoffs.
Exactly.
Come out and just play kind of what style they want.
And I think
well.
this is really good for Gold because we do have to consider that maybe Spoods won't be back in time for next season.
Yeah.
Maybe they do have to start committing to Fusion he's like the full-time member of the team now, right? And so having these like kind of off-season tournaments, I think will be really good for them to like keep building that synergy in an environment where it doesn't have the same implications as something like NACE or NECC.
See, and the only way to build that is by getting like you can scrim all you want or go into practice, but you have to get game action to ultimately like put those things into place because you can have a great setup, but if someone is adjusting to you in a game, then you have to be ready to do it. You can't just play like, oh, we have this set game plan, we're only going to do this. Yeah. So anytime you get game time to get everyone's chemistry on the same page and get the rotations down, like they'll take any chance they can get for that.
Yeah, but yeah, that's not like. Other than the green team, stuff is going to start slowing down for the Rocket League. But, overall, I think it's fair to say that they've had a great season up to this point. They didn't get the finish I'm sure they were looking for. I'm sure they would have liked to, finish in that top 3, sort of like we saw all these placements indicate. They did finish like a little lower, but their season overall, it was solid. Like they showed so many great games. They showed so many great performances against top teams. Like they were able to like take a set off Northwood, off Bay State. So they definitely have the skill. And
just peaked at the wrong time.
Yeah,
you just got to put it all together right when the playoffs started. They had a pretty strong early in the year. You want to be able to put it together for the playoffs, and unfortunately, they just couldn't get it all together to mesh. And unfortunately, especially with the sub issues and everything, they weren't able to string it together. But
other than that, they've been great. They've showed us so much entertainment.
Yeah,
for sure.
for sure.
Yeah.
The amount of crazy shots that I've seen in Rocket
Goal
League-
line saves, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that pretty much sums them up for Green, which we'll be sure to keep you guys updated on coming back next week. We want to keep it moving to the Valorant team now.
Sure. Alrighty. So on the side of Valorant, it was, like most of our teams, a pretty slow week. We only played
Yeah.
one game. It was a playoff game, however. The Valorant's NECC playoffs started, and they went up
Exciting.
against Butler Blue, who they did play in the later end of the NECC season.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, they beat them 2-0. Here in playoffs, another 2-0.
Deja vu.
Perfect.
It wasn't a stomp by any means though.
Right.
Like the maps were pretty close. You know, the first map did go 13-7, so a little bit fight back from Butler there. And then in game 2 it was a 16-14, so an overtime
Ooh.
round game.
Ooh.
So on Butler Blue's map pick,
Really a
it
nail
was-
biter, eh?
It did get down to the wire, but obviously Saints did come out on top. You know, they finished it, they closed it out pretty well. Looking forward to seeing them continue their run in playoffs, seeing how far they can go. They are, to my knowledge, one of the higher up seeds.
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
been putting together some
again,
wins the
so-
last 3 or 4 weeks. They've been stringing together some map wins here, and they say they started off a little bit slow with some back and forth trades, but they've really been putting it together the last couple weeks as
Yeah.
more time's gotten into the team.
And you know, Lupo, we did see Lupo in that starter position now. Like we talked about it a bit last week, and now we're seeing it fully, and he's looking solid. Team's looking just as good as ever. Like even though this match against Butler, it was like closer than the last time they played. I wouldn't really attribute that to like St. Clair having less in his skill. I think Butler was just able to improve a lot more.
Yeah.
They were able to look at like why they lost last time, fix those issues, and so they were able to make it a lot closer. But you know, St. Clair, they also kept on improving, and they were able to like keep staying ahead, right?
Yeah, typically rematches and everything will almost always be closer because if you had the game go exactly the same, then both teams, one team either didn't learn anything or the other team is just that much better.
Yeah.
So almost always when you run a game back, it's going to be closer. So if you're St. Clair, they probably expected that to happen. So they just knew like, hey, we have to make the plays when it's time. And obviously if you go to overtime, like every play has to be made at every moment. And say 16-14 means they didn't spend too much time in overtime. They only lost one round and then closed it out probably 2 in a row. So got to feel good for the boys going into heading into the playoffs and running through here.
100%, you know, and you know, Valorant is just one of those games. Well, like all esports in general, like sometimes you're just a playoff team. You know, you have a good performance, like a much stronger performance in playoffs. That could be the case here with Butler Blue,
sure.
but then also like, you know, with Valorant, like you lose one round and your economy drops, then you're probably going to lose the next couple rounds.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to lose a couple rounds and then you win a couple rounds back, and it just kind of goes back and forth. It's very easy to get into that kind of like back and forth, kind of flip flop economy. But you know, as we said, St. Clair, still doing great, still
Yeah.
doing well.
There is something that I think needs to be brought up though as we go into playoffs. NECC, or I believe like most leagues, right now I don't believe there's currently any rule when it comes to new releases. For example, the new agent who just came out, Chamber. And I think like when you get a patch in the middle of a tournament cycle, it'll always like change up things a bit, right? Some teams
Yeah.
will get a bit better, some teams will get a bit worse. This is a really big patch.
Yeah.
I'm not only here, especially someone like Chamber.
Chamber is certainly in an interesting spot in the game right now.
Yeah.
So there's definitely going to have to be a lot of adjustments made.
I think this will really like throw a curveball into things, and I think it could potentially work out in our favor because Chamber, he's a character who is very much like mechanical based, right?
Yeah.
If you have good aim, you're gonna be a good Chamber.
You will be
9 times out
you
of
will be
10.
rewarded handsomely if you can click heads with efficiency.
And I think mechanics, raw ability to click heads, that has always been the strongest part of our Valorant team. So
100%.
I think there's a very strong chance that we could see them pulling out some interesting Chamber strategies and just absolutely popping people.
That's what I would love to see, but say it's always like sketchy, right? You're in the playoffs. Like, do we want to throw Chamber in there and mix up our comp to throw off the other team? Because then you're like, you have to have faith in your players, but you're really relying on that player. Because if their aim is a little bit off that day, like Chamber is going to be like a lot of him will be nullified, and that'll be a huge missing piece that you could have used for another Sentinel or someone else to cover more area.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of like an all-in play there.
Yeah.
And especially like you're saying with someone like Chamber, where he doesn't Well, he does bring some utility to the team with his like little detection drones
Right.
that he places down that can scan for enemies, which is a nice bonus.
Yeah, for sure.
Most of his kit does play for himself.
If you play Chamber, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know what you're trying to do with him.
Some of the things that just makes him so strong is just his teleports have like such a massive range where you could be playing on one site and then you find out they're pushing one, you snap your fingers and you're on the other site with an op ready to go.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So you can kind of like flip flop between sites pretty easily. And then I think one of the things that like a lot of people don't realize with them is the ability to have 4 different guns.
Oh yeah.
Right? You could have an upgraded op that one shots no matter where you kill them. That slows an area after you get a kill.
Yeah.
You have an
Totally balanced.
You have an upgraded Marshal, which is basically pre-nerf Marshal, where you can one-shot headshot at any distance.
Oh yeah.
And it has a scope. And then you still get to have your regular primary and secondary on top of that. So you want to have a Phantom or a Vandal on top of that. And then you have, let's say, like a Classic or a Shorty. So you could have a Shorty for close range. You could have the Marshal for mid to long range. You can have your Phantom for more like kind of like mid to long range engagements. And then a free op every couple of rounds.
For when you just need to hold the sight
Just
line.
when you need to hold the sight line.
So
So
it's like he's a very interesting character. I'm sure that the Chamber that we are talking about right now, the current iteration,
Will
If
not
I
be
had to
he
guess,
will not be the same
it's
for very
not-
long.
Yeah, he's not gonna. That state will not last very long, if I had to guess, because anyone who pays attention to like the Valorant Twitter and stuff, they'll know that like there's a lot of clamor about him right now, and Riot generally pretty good about being quick with balance patches and stuff. So honestly, there's a chance that we see changes to him before we even like get to like the finals of the playoffs.
Load into
right?
any Valorant game in the next like week before they attempt to patch anything, and you'll be annoyed by Chamber within the first 2 games.
Yeah.
He'll shoot you, he'll teleport behind you and shoot you in the back of the head with a hand cannon or an op, or he just it's so annoying. Like, he is so annoying in the meta right now. But he could be used. That's the annoyance comes with a lot of strength.
Yeah,
So if he can be utilized to his fullest, then there's a
Also,
lot
just
of
the fact
potential.
that he's so new, people don't know how to like potentially play against him yet.
Oh,
right?
no one knows yet.
Exactly.
There's no real way to actually like play him
Like,
yet. People
the
are still figuring out what strats.
the implications that arise from having him available in playoffs is really interesting, and so it's definitely going to be something that you have to keep an eye on going into
It
this.
changes the dynamic of the entire game now.
Yeah.
100%. With kind of like wrapping things up with Valorant. Obviously, stay tuned for any updates of when their next match is going to be via like the different channels.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can move over to our community spotlight here if we want.
Yeah, let's do it. So
And if we want to get things started, I could talk about the Q&A group.
yeah,
Here
Absolutely,
with,
let's
the
do it.
St. Clair Esports.
you know, they've had a couple of really successful like Q&A sessions so far with some prominent members of the esports industry. So what do we got coming up?
100%. So the next one is coming up on Monday, probably the day this video gets posted.
Monday, November 29th.
Yep.
Just to make sure at 3 p.m.
3 p.m. And Matt, do you know who's going to be there talking about it?
Yeah, they are going to be talking with Jean-Marc, who is, I believe, he's the Canadian head of Crunchyroll. So he's not like the top guy at Crunchyroll, but when it comes to Canadian related promotions and activities, he's the guy who takes care of all that, Canadian sponsorships. And for those of you who aren't aware, Crunchyroll is, of course, a sponsor of Saints Gaming. So we're gonna be getting a special Q&A interview with him, and because I know he and Sean, they were basically the two ones who headed up that process.
Yeah.
And it'll be really interesting to kind of hear about. He's gonna be talking about like what it's like to like be kind of the premiere of like as being a streaming service sponsoring like esports, especially a collegiate esports school, right?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like what sort of like value he brings up like in that interview. Like what specifically does Crunchyroll get out of like sponsoring like collegiate esports?
Now, I think it'll be really interesting because like sponsorships, they're really like sponsorships are pretty like the center of like any sport. Like you look at like traditional sports, plastered with the sponsorships everywhere, like hockey rinks. Every square meter, there's a different sponsorship, right? Even you
Look at some of the soccer jerseys.
yeah, soccer
Like
jerseys.
100
Soccer
different ads.
jerseys. The sponsorship is more prevalent than the actual
team,
team
yeah.
itself. You look at like NASCAR, right? you identify a car by who the sponsor for
Yeah,
it is.
literally,
Not
yeah.
the driver, not the number, by the sponsor.
That's the McDonald's car.
Exactly, right? And so sponsors are a really interesting thing to talk about because we are seeing bigger and bigger companies getting into sponsoring esports. And Crunchyroll, they are a very big company. Like, they're pretty much the premier company when it comes to anime specific streaming sites. So it'll be really interesting to see what he has to say and what kind of insights he can provide onto what the thought process is behind sponsoring.
Yeah, and we are very thankful that they have graciously blessed their presence on all the new merch, whether the jerseys, some of the other jackets and everything. It's like to have a company that huge and be able to sponsor everything is just, it's super awesome. I say it's super cool too. To go to a school and just say, oh yeah, we're sponsored by Crunchyroll. It's like, what?
And as of right
doesn't
now,
even seem real. Like,
as of right now, Saints Gaming is the only esports org that is sponsored by Crunchyroll.
exclusive deal.
You know, like you're saying, it's kind of like
Kind of surreal, yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
thinking about like I go to college where I study esports and I play on a varsity esports team who happens to be sponsored by an anime streaming service.
Yeah,
The simulation is
that's awesome.
It's such a cool experience.
it's one of the coolest parts probably. Say when we heard the sponsor about earlier in the year, so it'll be fun. Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear some of the back end stuff. Cause say when we heard this announcement beginning of the semester, like everybody was juiced about it. Say it's probably the coolest thing that happened all year.
Yeah. Twitter blew
Oh,
up.
yeah, it was popping off. So it was just it's around like a huge like staple company that like a global company like come in and sponsor and then have a beautiful the other side beautiful orange logo and all the merchandise.
Yeah.
Just super cool, man.
Oh yeah, but it'll be really great to hear what they're going to be talking about. So make sure we tune into that. That's November 29th at 3 p.m. It'll be streamed on the St. Clair Esports Twitch channel. So yeah, make sure you go check that out.
Yeah, it's SC Esports Club on Twitch. Yeah, they'll be streaming it there. Yeah, Monday, November 29th at 3 p.m. It'll go for however long they have the questions and answers for. So just pop in if you got a few minutes and hear some interesting stuff about the back end side of sponsorships and how they develop and everything like that.
Yeah. And I believe the Esports Club also has another event coming up for us.
Yeah, the casual gaming event that we have we advertised it for with the Pokemon Diamond event and some of the other casual gaming events on campus. This time we're doing another event at Easy Mode. It'll be December 3rd from 6 to 10 usual time slot. This will be Guitar Hero 3 and Rock Band. So if there hasn't been a lot of these kind of events on campus, I will personally be at this one and I'll be accepting any and all challengers. It's like not many of these events have been able to happen on campus or anywhere. So to have like these two games these are very unique games. So if you're looking to get out and play these, like there's not really like any competitive scene for these games anymore, so to speak. And it's not really like a common game. Like people don't just have Guitar Hero at their house anymore. So if you're really looking to play and get out and have a good couple hours and have some good music, like this is an event you would not want to miss. And say it's on a Friday night, so come have a couple of drinks at Easy Mode, play some Guitar Hero, and just vibe out. Should be a good time.
Absolutely. No. These are games that like a lot of people just grew up with, right?
I'm so pumped for this event. I can't even describe it.
Unfortunately, it's been years since we've seen a new title for either of these games, really. But fortunately, we do have like the community scene keeping the legacy alive, and with events like this, the games are like they're still just as fun as they ever were, right?
And someone popping off in like Guitar Hero Rock Band, like it creates like a buzz in there. When people are like, "Oh my god, what's going on over there?" Like when you have someone popping off on a slot, you can get a crowd really quickly to come over and see what's going on.
It's kind of like being the guy in the arcade who's got like almost getting to the perfect spot, right? Like you got people crowding around you, like, oh my god, he's gonna do it.
Yeah, you're still like, oh, he's going.
I remember seeing YouTube videos of like the first times people got 100 FC on like Through the Fire.
Oh yeah.
Like just absolutely insane stuff. The skill, the timing of some of these people, like honestly, I think if they were to become like proper full on musicians,
oh my god,
they would be insane.
Dude, their hands move at like Mach 10.
Oh, I know,
like,
it's crazy.
Yo, Guitar Hero Varsity what? Gosh.
Make it happen. Yeah.
Need it.
Yeah, so a couple of really good events there. Make sure that if you can come out to them, we'd love to see you. I believe it's $5 admission.
Yeah, I think they have like the tournament or whatever. Yeah, $5 admission. That's you can come in, grab a few drinks. It's from 6 to 10, Friday, December 3rd. So yeah, next Friday, as of the time of filming.
There's going to be prizes.
At Easy Mode, if I mentioned it, just to make sure we got the location down pat.
So come eat, drink, and be merry. It'll be a great time.
And play some guitar.
Yeah, exactly.
How can you go wrong?
Unfortunately, moving on from the community segment and going to what's coming up, there's not much currently.
This is what can go wrong.
Yeah. Currently, there are no broadcasts scheduled for us here at Saints Gaming, but I do believe that the COD Team Grand Finals, that will be streamed on the NACE Twitch channel.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure that's 100% guaranteed going to be streamed on the NACE
Yeah.
channel, and it might be streamed on our channel. I don't think that's 100% confirmed.
Yeah. So we'll try to see what's going to be happening in terms of, because there are still matches happening. It's just a bit unfortunate that they aren't
Yeah.
going to be getting streamed. They're not going to be getting covered by us, but they are going to be covered hopefully by NACE. And even if they aren't covered by like these tournament organizers and stuff, they will be covered after the fact by us here at Bird's Eye View.
And one quick thing as well, there is, on top of the COD being on Saturday, there is the League of Legends NECC semifinals on Friday. That should be streamed, I believe, on the Saints YouTube and the Twitch channel. It has been every other week, so barring any setbacks or if NECC makes any other rules or anything, that should definitely be streamed on the Saints Gaming Twitch channel and the Saints Gaming YouTube channel, so keep an eye out for that, because the way the league team has been running recently and the return of Ricky, you do not want to miss this team.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you know, like that's just one thing to note. Like, that being said, like, we might not know like 100% any broadcast coming up, but that's why, you know, go follow the Saints Twitter, get on the Discord, you know, follow the Twitch and the YouTube, and like turn all the notifications on, because things can change at a moment's notice within collegiate esports. So you just gotta kind of stay up to date.
For better or for worse, the world of esports is very volatile, and stuff changes at a moment's notice.
Yeah. But obviously, you know, all that's hard to keep up with. And like you said, that's why
what we're here for. So make sure you guys tune in next week, where we're going to be covering everything that went on over the past week. Anything that you might have missed, we'll be sure to be talking about it here on the show.
We will have our championship preview for Call of Duty. Hopefully, League of Legends will be in the process of moving on to the finals of NECC as soon as we're done recording. So hopefully we will be planning a ring ceremony shortly after our next filming session, but we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go bring home that trophy.
But yeah, thank you guys all for watching this week. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe here on the Saints YouTube channel. We are also available in podcast form, and if you didn't know that, so go check us out on Spotify, Google Podcasts, whatever. We're there. If you just want to like put us on in the car or whatever, it's a great place.
We won't complain.
Exactly, yeah. But for now, thank you guys all for tuning in, and we will see you all next week. So have a good night, everyone.